Today, on the International Day of Awareness for Food Loss and Waste, we are turning our attention to a critical issue affecting Malaysia and the wider ASEAN region. While we are celebrated for our rich and diverse food culture, the stark reality is that we produce and waste thousands of tons of food every single day. This isn't just a matter of overflowing landfills, it has profound implications for environment, economy, and food security. To help us understand the scale of this problem, we have a prominent expert on the issue, SUZANNE MOONEY, founder of the Lost Food Project. Thanks for doing this, SUZANNE.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Right, so this issue is especially pressing in Malaysia and the ASEAN region, with thousands of tons of food wasted daily. Now, how does this local reality fit into the broader regional context, and what alarming statistics best highlight the urgency of the problem in our part of the world?
Sure. Well, actually, food waste is the same all over the world. There's about 4,000 tons that are wasted every day in Malaysia. That's edible food that should be eaten. And there's many more thousands of tons that are thrown away in addition each day as well. I think that for me, the most pressing statistic is that there is enough food wasted every single day that could feed every single hungry person 4 times over. So it just means we don't actually need to have any hungry people in the world. In fact, there's so much food that even if we used up all of the spare food, there's still 3/4 of it left over anyway. And it costs people so much money. The cost of living is going up. There's people who aren't even at the bottom of the chain but are struggling at the moment. So there's so much that can be done, and also it's the devastating damage that food waste causes. It's really has an impact on the climate, and also the food waste is going into our water systems, it's going into our soils, and it's going into the air, and it's highly toxic.
Right. Food loss occurs at every stage of the supply chain. Now, can you explain where it is most pronounced in Malaysia and ASEAN? And is the problem primarily on farms due to poor cold chain infrastructure, or is it more with consumers and retailers in our urban centers where, aesthetic standards play a role?
It's actually across the entire food chain. So there's so many reasons that food is wasted and lost. It's kind of, as you say, at farm level, it's storage, it's transport, it's shops, it's in the factory. There's also bureaucratic reasons that food is wasted. It's wasted, it's not always sold in the shops. Even at home, we're not using our food properly. And, at buffets, like you say, or in restaurants, there's a huge amount of food waste across every single step of the supply chain. And it's not really, a priority as much as it should be, because it can really alleviate a lot of poverty and obviously the damage that it's causing to the climate.
Right, you mentioned buffets. Now, Malaysian food culture, especially during festive seasons, we've got food festivals, hotel buffets, etc. This really emphasizes abundance, and this also often leads to a surge in food waste. How do cultural norms and consumer psychology influence household food waste, and what makes these deeply ingrained habits so difficult to change?
Yes, I mean, it's so interesting. There's so much psychology, actually. That's a whole other interview we could do. I've actually written a chapter on a book about this. But, habits are usually formed often in generations, and they're there for a reason. So we can pick why we behave in a certain way. And of course, buffets are lovely, wonderful things to be part of. You're part of a community. It's part of a celebration of many things. And there's nothing more wonderful than having lots of different foods. But we have to look at where there's waste, how we can change it, how we can change habits. And it's not a simple thing, of course. But for example, I was myself at a buffet last week, and in the buffet they had, it cost where I was at the time, it was 40 francs to buy a plate, and you can put as much food as you want on that plate. But if you didn't finish everything on the plate at the end, they charge you an extra 8 francs. So, there's simple little tricks. There's simple ways of making people think about what they put on their plate before they put it on. And then, the restaurant should look at what's left over at the end and try and adjust that for the next time. So, habits are difficult to break. And let's have an interview all about the psychology of food and we can explore that more.
Right. Most restaurants and hotels are in fact starting to practice that, but I think the problem is a bit more, in the household itself. Now, early on, you did mention that food waste has a very significant environmental and also economic repercussions, and this is beyond the immediate waste that we see. What exactly is the true cost of this waste to Malaysia's economy, and what is the environmental toll, particularly concerning methane emissions from landfills that dominate waste disposal in this region?
Yeah, I mean, the disposal costs run into billions of ringgits every year, thousands of ringgits for every single household in Malaysia. So the financial cost is enormous, and also the missed opportunity of feeding people. I mean, there's literally, I think it's something like 12 million meals every single day, quality foods that are thrown away. So on a financial basis, we could feed, everyone in Malaysia who needs food, who doesn't have enough food. We could save billions on the actual disposal costs. And also the government are giving away a lot of, non-targeted subsidies to help, for good reasons. And those billions also could be, targeted or given to other elements of society that need it, especially if government are sort of having to juggle the books. It's a really good way of redirecting funds somewhere that needs it, and the environmental cost is often intangible and it's also difficult to measure, but it's absolutely millions of kilograms of CO2 that doesn't need to be put into our environment, and it's also what it's doing to our soil. And it's making the soil, it's putting poison basically into the soil. Methane is super toxic. It's up to 80 times more toxic than CO2. And this is all avoidable.
Right. Speaking about government policy now, obviously that and technology plays a crucial role. What are some of the policy level interventions or technological solutions being explored within Malaysia and ASEAN to tackle food waste right now?
Right across the world, a lot of governments are now realizing this is a really big problem. And in fact, the Global Food Banking Network, which is the umbrella organization for food waste, I really applaud what Malaysia and the Malaysia government have done in particular. In fact, we're having a regional Asian conference which is going to be hosted in Malaysia, partly because of this. As I say, lots of governments are trying to address different issues by making, supermarkets and retailers have mandatory reporting on all the waste, etc. Some countries have already got some financial incentives for donors called tax rebates, which the government in Malaysia are very proactively exploring. We're working with them very closely. And, if they go ahead with this, they will be one of the pioneering kind of governments in the region. And they're definitely one of, I'd say, the trailblazers in terms of addressing food waste, because they can see, because in Malaysia, we all know how important food is. And it's just being sensible with how we deal and reduce food waste. And I think it's a low-hanging fruit for any government, because we're saving money in so many different places and we're helping the environment. And perhaps most importantly, we can give people with not much money a slightly easier life by giving them food that means so much to them.
Right, Suzanne, for our viewers who are at home, what is one simple but powerful action that they can take today to help combat food loss and waste? And what is your advice for maintaining this habit and making it, really making a difference throughout the year?
I think, for me anyway, on a personal level, I mean, none of us are perfect, and it's not always about being perfect, but it's about moving in the right direction and what you can do every day to make yourself a slightly better, nicer person. And I would say be thoughtful before you shop. When you're buying things, really think, will you eat this? When you're putting things in the fridge, will you them? I would put a note on my fridge, sort of saying, eat me, be, making sure that that you should be using all your leftovers, you should be storing them, make friends with your neighbors, give people food that when you've made too much, and just making a conscious effort not to shop when you're hungry, to eat the food that you've bought, and to be thoughtful with food.
Right. Thank you, Suzanne, for sharing your insights with us today. We look forward to having you with us again. That was Suzanne Mooney, founder of the Lost Food Project, reminding us that change begins with how we value our food. More global updates in just a moment. This is The World on Bernama TV. Stay with us.